television weekends of all weekends that there's been a huge increase in sort of May outside of term time holidays. I'd be very interested to examine those statistics very closely. One swallow doesn't make a summer, quite frankly. But the issue with this is that it's brought into sharp focus the difference between holiday prices in school holidays and also term time. And with families like the families who come to our helpline, they make their decision to either seek permission to take their children out of school or to just unilaterally take them out of school. Some of them will take the decision to take the hit on the fine. Some of them will try and fight it. And the concern that I have is that we are criminalizing parents who find themselves in difficult situations. And so, for example, if you have, say, a military person who decides to take his family out of school to go to Spain, and he tries to fight it and he goes to court, he will get a criminal conviction. If he then decides that he wants to take his family to Disney World in Florida next year and applies for an ESTA, he's got a criminal record. And it could affect his employability. There are so many implications on this. I think, quite frankly, the law should be scrapped. We should go back to the pre-2013 situation, and I'm pretty sure there are plenty of workarounds that can be developed without creating a draconian law. This government tells us that they like bonfires of regulation. Well, here's one that they can toss onto the bonfire and, introduce a much more sensible environment. I'm absolutely convinced that the majority of head teachers would agree with that as well, because as I said earlier, they've been handed the poison chalice. It puts them into conflict with parents. And I'm pretty sure that that's a place that they don't really want to sit.
You can keep up to date with travel news and leave me a message at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Links to Holiday Travel Watch and to Frank's Twitter account can be found at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Like most people, I haven't been on an adventure holiday. I have had adventures when I've been on holiday, but it's not necessarily the same thing. I argued with an armed police officer in Kenya, which is a very stupid thing to do. I don't recommend that anybody does that. It's just that at the time I was actually a civilian working for the police in the UK, and I was so used to arguing with police officers, I just did it out of second nature. He wanted my football shirt, and he was going to go into another shop to steal something to swap for my football shirt, and I was having none of it. So anyway, next time I'll probably just give him the shirt. But that's that. And I have been in a lion enclosure when there's been lions in there, and the lions would obviously come and say hi to me if other people who have volunteered at the animal sanctuary weren't at the other end of the enclosure throwing chickens over the top for the lions to eat. Oh, and I've been on a taxi coming from an village outside Mombasa in Kenya, and it's run out of petrol, and the taxi driver's run off with some of my money to go and get some petrol from somewhere, and I'm just in the middle of nowhere. But even then, it's not an adventure travel, it's an adventure while you've been travelling, as far as I'm concerned. Around this time last year, I saw a feature in The Independent about the Adventure Travel Film Festival, and it looked very interesting, and I was hoping it's going to come round again, and it has. I actually put it in my diary, which is part of my journalism training. Something stuck if nothing else has. And I made contact, and Austin Vince was very keen to chat to discuss what this Adventure Travel Film Festival is all about. As I say, it's not about the travel I've had, it's about proper adventure. But anyway, let's start off by finding out who actually came up with the idea for the Adventure Travel Film Festival.
Of course, it was me, but another more accurate answer, it was my wife. And we had, I'd made a lot of films about people motorcycling around the world, or me and my friends motorcycling around the world. We did that in the 90s. Some of the films that I made got onto television, onto Discovery, and people found out about them. And we used to get sent films by other people who'd done long journeys. and just a trickle to start with, mostly motorcycle people. But they sort of said, "Oh, I saw your film and I really liked it," and encouraged me to do a film. And so here's mine 3 years later or 7 years later. We built up a little collection, and some of them were rubbish, some of them were okay, and a handful, I mean, a substantial portion, let's say 1 in 10, were fantastic, were much better than the films I've made, and were truly astonishing. And the ones that were really good, we used to lend them to our friends, or we'd talk to our friends about it, say, "Oh, we just got this film by this guy in Poland, or this bloke in Canada who's just done this thing," and he sent us this film, and we realized we were building up this weird private collection that no one knew about, and it was a genre of film that didn't exist, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, adventure travel films. There were no such things, because the only adventure travel film might be a TV show made by a TV company with, David Attenborough or Michael Palin might be sent somewhere or something like that. So, and the stuff we were getting was made by, of course, members of the public, some of whom knew how to make films. And so they weren't just rubbish, but more importantly, these members of the public ended up doing things that were a zillion times more staggering than anything you'd ever seen on television. So about 7 years ago, my wife said, "Look, let's see if we can have a weekend and share these films with everyone." We'd been sharing them with people informally, like lending DVDs to mates, stuff like that, for 5 years. And then, we said, "Let's try and have a weekend." So we just emailed everyone we knew and said, we've booked a field at the back of a kind of kids' activity centre in Devon. And they've got a barn, and we borrowed a projector, and a mate who had a projector came and with a PA and stuff. And it was incredibly primitive. And we got 250 people came, and it was brilliant. It was a fantastic vibe. I think, if nothing else, everyone knew that they were there because they were into it. There was nothing cool about it. Well, you know what I mean? It is cool, of course. It's endlessly cool. but it wasn't corporate. It wasn't sponsored. We weren't trying to sell anybody anything. It wasn't a hip thing to be seen at. It was nothing to do with how old you were. So, you were there because you recognized that these movies were exceptional, and that's what bound everyone together. And here we are 6 years later.
250 was more than I expected when you said the numbers. I was expecting maybe 24, so that's quite an impressive start.
Well, do you know what our threshold was? Where we said, if we get this money, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
If we get any less, we'll cancel it. What number do you think that was for the first one?
15.
Oh, very good, mate. It was 20.
20.
Yeah, we said if we got 20 people, which is not even a decent party, is it? Imagine holding a party and only 20 people turned up. So we thought, we were really aware of how underground we were, and at one level we weren't tapping into public consciousness, but at another level we were, because we were providing what I think, the Discovery Channel or Sunday night on BBC Two or whatever, we were providing what television channels should. It's a weird thing. If you get one of the films that we think is really good, and you sent it in to the BBC, you realise that nothing would happen. I don't mean it wouldn't be on television because it got rejected. You wouldn't even get a letter back from anyone saying, "We've watched your film and it's not quite what we're looking for." It would just be thrown away it would literally be put in the bin. And there's something weird about the way television works, and something very unhealthy about the way British television works is that the public are not allowed to be part of the process. Weirdly. Anyway, so one of the ways we're looking at our festival is that we run a kick-ass, fantastic TV channel for just 2 days, and it broadcasts live. So you have to be there. You have to be at the broadcasting station, which is this year in Mill Hill in North West London, and to absorb it.
You can follow me on Twitter @holiday_hut. I'm speaking to this week's second guest, and that's Austin Vince. We're talking about the Adventure Travel Film Festival. And the next question I put to Austin was, how did last year's festival compare to the very first one that he held?
Yeah, good question. Well, last year was 700 people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like 10,000 people now, but I mean, I think that's because we're still unsponsored. Mm-hmm. Well, now this year, Honda are helping us this year, which is great to have a household name come behind you. They came to us and they said, look, we found out about what you're doing. We think it's really cool. Mm-hmm. Do you want some help? And we said, of course, we'd totally love some help. And so the first thing is that we moved from the farm place with the toilets, if nothing else, couldn't cope with the amount of people we had there. And it was a bit far away down in Barnstable. It was Bideford, near Barnstable. And that was quite, obviously, apart from people who lived in Cornwall or Devon. Even if you live in Exeter, it's a bit of a mission to get up there. Yeah. And so we moved it then to the grounds and buildings of a girls' boarding school in a town called Sherborne in Dorset. But even that was a bit far away. And then we outgrew. About 2 years ago, we had 650 people in Sherborne, and it was too big. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was too many people. So I used to work at this big old boarding school at a place called Mill Hill in North West London, and they've got like 180 acres of ground in the green belt. I mean, it's a staggering location. When it was built in 1807, it was the countryside, obviously. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was well outside London. That was the whole point of how a couple of guys chose it when they set the school up there, not realizing London would eventually creep up and envelop it around it. But they've got the land and the scale of the buildings that we needed, so we moved it from Dorset to Mill Hill. We didn't want to bring it to London, but it's this paradox of the fact that it sounds like it's in London, but it's ironically much more rural than the Dorset venue was, where you had people's houses coming up to the bottom of the school gates, sort of things. And so there's a load more people. Everything's just slicker and better. At the first festival, it was me and my wife running around with speakers and leads and extension blocks, and we did everything ourselves. Obviously, hanging everything up. We had two friends help us, so that was like a crew of 4. All the tickets were done by people would send us a PayPal payment or something like that. Now we use a ticketing agency. Everything's just got a bit more grown up and organised. The scale of it's bigger. Now there's the volunteers who help us. It's not 2 people, there's 70 people. We're setting everything up for like 3 days in advance. We have more films. We have better films. We've got a website now. Back then, I don't think we had a website. And we get sent about 200 films a year now, plus the other ones that we dig up ourselves through our own investigation. We also specialize in vintage stuff. So we have developed a reputation for finding adventure travel films from the 20s onwards that have disappeared, and the people who did them are dead. But the film exists somewhere, and somehow it gets to us, and then we showcase that, and no one's heard of it. And so, can I give you an example of one of them?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so we got a film this year called Ella Maillart's Double Journey. Ella Maillart was a Swiss-French writer, really, in the 1930s, and she had a friend who was essentially a kind of a part-time opium addict and was in a bad way. And they were young; they were like in their 20s. These 2 girls, and they borrowed Ella's dad's car, and they drove from Geneva to Delhi. And they had enough wherewithal. I think I don't know why this was, but LMAR had a 16mm camera.